Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Political Excess. Today, there's a couple things that I'll be covering more in the future. Like Missouri, they finally passed their congressional map, and there's some more primaries coming up next Tuesday. But today, I just wanted to go on a little bit of a rant about how to draw political boundary lines. Now, if you've listened to any of my other videos, you know that my primary metric is the partisan makeup, the political affiliation. And secondarily, the geography, you'd like that to be fairly compact if possible. And you know that I'm an opponent of racial or ethnic gerrymandering and having that be primary metric at all with how to draw any of these boundaries. My view is that we are electing usually a person affiliated with a political party or endorsed by a political party. We're not electing leaders of a racial or ethnic or identity group. If we were, then yeah, you would want to draw them based on that. And yeah, sometimes an ethnic group or an identity does overlap with the political affiliation. Sometimes that is true, but sometimes it's not true. And even if it is true, a lot of times people will just use the identity group as a crutch to make it more palatable or emotional, when really they're after that political power, as everybody knows. I don't think some of the provisions of the Voting Rights Act hold up today, as I'm a big advocate of the partisan fairness. The VRA doesn't really go into that. And I think the partisan fairness is something that everybody can agree on. If you're in the minority party of one state, you would love to have these protections, and the opposite party in another state would also love to have some sort of partisan fairness protections. So I think that's something everybody can get on board with, anti-gerrymandering, that kind of thing. But then again, you have to pick your metrics. So my view is drawing maps based on political affiliation or the partisan makeup of recent elections. That's the way to go. And if they can't be drawn reasonably well or fairly, then I would rather have at-large districts, just so there's no bickering about which group is getting what. Now, this was getting to me a little bit more because here's some news out of Chicago where they're redrawing their city council map, and there's 50 wards for 50 aldermen. And it seems like the absolute vast majority of the news coverage is all about the race or the ethnicity of each ward. And there's all these special interest groups and identity groups that are advocating for all this. I don't know if they actually speak for all the people or if they're doing their own thing, but it's just all about the skin color. And I find it very off-putting and fairly disgusting, to be quite honest. It just seems like this is all the stuff we're supposed to get away from, is focusing on what somebody looks like. Now, I know it's a more of a nuanced and complex issue in a city like Chicago. You're going to have some differences of opinion on local matters, but by and large, I believe there are 46 Democrats and 4 independents. So these people have very little, if anything, to do with the Republican Party. So you can't really draw based on political affiliation when everybody is already basically a Democrat. So then, yeah, it's a tough decision. What do you do after that? And I guess a lot of people just resort to going down to skin color. And for some reason, it feels like I shouldn't be talking about this, but at the same time, what I'm talking about, that actually seems like the real problem. Now, there is no real good way to do this. Either you have to completely draw it irrespective of the identity group, or you have to make that the absolute primary metric, and that's it. And it does seem like we're just living in pre-civilization where it's all tribal, it's all about identity. And I don't know why people care so much if the person representing them looks like them, if they're going to vote with them 80 to 90% of the time. Because if everybody who represents you has to have your skin color, then we're all done for, because that's going to go nowhere. It really seems antithetical to everything that we generally talk about and put forward superficially as values, where you can have anybody represent you and you can accept different people of different backgrounds, and it's all fine, because if you guys are on the same page with your views, that's really the important thing. But then when it comes to the map making process, it's just all race all the time. And I don't know who's a fan of this, but I'm not. And again, I don't have a perfect way to do it once you get down to everybody in the city generally leaning in one political direction. I think one way to do it would be to draw the lines based on class. That might be one way to do it. And, have it be about economics and forget the identity. And then another thing I notice is reading these stories is just they list a number of black districts, Hispanic districts, Asian districts. They just somehow omit the number of white districts. Not sure why that is, but if you're going to go ahead and list the ethnic groups or the racial groups, just list the number of white districts, make it complete. For some reason, it's supposed to be, you're not supposed to think of white people in a group sense in any kind of positive light unless they're immigrants. That's the only thing I could think of. Anyway, there's a lot here. There's a lot more that could be said. There's more substance to this. People have different political ideologies, even within the city. They're more progressive, they're more conservative, even if they are all Democrats. I do think, though, once a political party becomes so dominant, they should break up and have sub-factions and sub-political parties, just so it's easier to differentiate instead of looking at a map and saying, oh, all these people are Democrats. I'd like to know a little bit more about them if I'm not familiar with that city or with that area. It is complex. It's an issue a lot of people don't really want to talk about. And a lot of what I'm saying is independent of the Voting Rights Act and the legal aspect. And it's just from a practical and an ethical, moral, consistent standpoint. Because I know certain racial or ethnic minority status does warrant some protections. But then, of course, when you look further into it, in certain cities or counties or states, when there is no longer a majority, then it gets complicated, and then there's a lot more questions, and I don't think people have good answers for it in order to be actually consistent and provide equal protection. That's my view, at least. So let me know what you think about any of this. Did I hit the nail on the head, or is this something I'm not supposed to talk about, or is it somewhere in between? If you enjoy this content, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.